Yes, I'll introduce the presentation this evening will be done by Christine O'Rourke, who is taking the lead on our general plan process. So Christine will be doing the presentation, and our Community Development Director, Bob Brown, will be, I'm guessing, assisting or jumping up to help answer questions later.
Welcome. Okay, thank you. So can we get this hooked up here? There it is. Great. Okay. Hi, I'm Christine O'Rourke, the General Plan Project Manager, and good evening, Mayor, Madam Mayor, and members of the Council. It's a pleasure to be here tonight with you. Tonight we're here to give you an update on the general plan process of work that's been completed and what we're in the process of doing, and also to discuss a refinement of the work program, and that's to entail our focus areas, selection of focus areas, as well as the white paper topics. So one of the first things that we've done for the general plan update work program is to develop our general plan logo. And this we are using to brand our general plan process. We're using it on all of our marketing materials. And the logo is divided into 4 quadrants. The one on the top is, of course, just an emblem of the city of Novato. And then the other 3 quadrants are meant to represent kind of the 3 sections that we're envisioning dividing the general plan into. So the one on the left is the natural environment. The one on the bottom is the built environment. That would include housing, land use, transportation. And then the one on the right is kind of our working title is the socioeconomic section. So that would include things like economic development, human services, and public facilities. So the other thing that we've been working hard at is preparing our existing conditions report. And this report provides baseline conditions for the city of Novato, a lot of background material that's used in developing policies, and it just provides, it's a reference document essentially. And it's going to be also used in providing some introductory material for the chapters of the general plan. It's also used as a basis in the preparation of the environmental impact report. The existing conditions report was done by the city's former general plan consultant, Design Community Environment, and it was prepared in 2009. All of the data and much of the information is now 5 years old and it's out of date. So we are in the process of updating it. The report is, it's very comprehensive. It's 500 pages, it's 17 chapters, it covers all kinds of topics, circulation, public facilities, air quality, etc. So it's actually quite a bit of work. We've divided it among all of the departments or the applicable departments of the city. So we have community development is doing the brunt of the work, but also we are getting help with community services, police, public works, and economic development. The other thing that we're doing kind of, and this is not meant to be linear, a lot of these things are happening at the same time. We're also starting to evaluate the existing policies and programs of the 1996 general plan. And this work has also been kind of farmed out to all the various departments. And what we're doing is we're looking at each policy and program and determining whether it was implemented, if it wasn't implemented, why not, should it be continued, should it be modified, or is it no longer relevant. So then we'll have that information to use. Once we have the existing conditions report chapter and the policies and programs, kind of our initial take, our cut of the policies and programs completed, then we'll bring that to the applicable boards and commissions. And they'll review that material and they'll use that to identify policy options and start discussing new policies and programs that they'd like to see in the updated general plan. The other thing that we're doing is studying focus areas. The first one, we've already started on the North Redwood Corridor, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But essentially, for each focus area, what we're talking about is doing public outreach through workshops, also through Open Novato, our new online forum for community engagement, bringing the focus areas to the applicable boards and commissions, going to the Planning Commission, and also the City Council for input on each one of these focus areas. And we're also going to be developing white papers. These are white papers on significant policy options. They're policy options that we feel need to be addressed and resolved before actually drafting the general plan. We've identified 8 white papers that we'd like to, staff would like to develop, and I'll be talking about those more later. But again, before we even bring those to the City Council, we would vet them through the boards and commissions, through Open Novato, bring it to the Planning Commission, and then the City Council. So there's plenty of opportunity on each of these steps for public input. When we get all of this information done, we'll put it all together into our draft general plan. And again, the draft general plan will go through the boards and commissions, public workshops, Open Novato, the Planning Commission, and the City Council. So we are just beginning this process. The focus areas, the first one, of course, is the North Redwood Corridor, and that was selected by the Council in April, primarily because there was a development moratorium on many of the properties in the corridor, so we needed to get started on that. And these other focus areas were presented to the Council and the Planning Commission in April. Belmarine Keys Industrial Park, Hamilton, North Redwood Boulevard. This is the area that's north of San Marin Drive up to the Birkenstock site. The Northwest Quadrant neighborhood, this is the area that's north of Grant, west of Redwood Boulevard, and it encompasses Vallejo and Olive Avenue and 1st through 7th Streets. And then also the South Redwood Boulevard, and that's from Roland to DeLong. So those focus areas we brought to you in April, and so I thought what we'd do is kind of recap what we've already done and what we're doing for the North Redwood Corridor, kind of as an example. Maybe this is more comprehensive than we would actually have bandwidth to do for the other focus areas, or they may not even require such an extensive planning effort. But the first thing we did was to, we had 2 public workshops, and those were preceded by a walking tour that we had of the area. It was very well attended, and we walked the whole area and looked at opportunities and constraints. That was on a Thursday. And then on Saturday, we convened at the Margaret Todd Center on September 14th. And we had a full day. The morning, we had presentations by, that's a picture of our former Public Works Director, Jason Nutt. He talked about infrastructure and circulation options for the area. We had an expert panel, a panel with real estate experts that talked about the current real estate market, what was economically feasible for commercial development in the area. We also had a discussion about land uses, place types, and essentially gave our participants tools for the next part after lunch, when we broke into 9 groups, small groups, and each group worked with a map and identified land uses that they wanted on the map, designs, building types, design criteria, infrastructure that they'd like to see. So that was on, and that was very well attended. We had over 100 participants on that day. Next, what we did, the staff kind of coalesced all of that information into 3 alternative concepts, and then met with 14 volunteer architects. These are some of the best architects in Marin County. Many of them had ties to Novato. And they met 2 evenings, donated countless hours of volunteer time, putting together 3 separate schemes that were then presented at a second public input meeting on September 28th. At that meeting, the architects presented their plans, and then we had 3 workstations set up. We broke our group of about 120 people into 3 different groups and rotated them through the stations. And at each station, we asked them what they like, what they don't like, what their concerns were, what they'd like to change of all of those plans. We also utilized Open Novato in actually 2 different steps in this process. The first one was a couple of weeks before the first workshop. We posted our first topic, what types of land uses would you like to see in the North Redwood Corridor? And this essentially kind of was designed to be a virtual online workshop. So we gave them a virtual tour. We talked about land uses, and then we provided a map and gave them kind of an interactive map where they could place land uses directly on the map. This topic was reviewed by over 200 participants, and we had 17 responses. The next topic we posted right after the second workshop: which design scheme do you prefer for the North Redwood Boulevard corridor? And this one we had about just over 100 participants so far. This topic is actually still open, and we ask everybody to go on Open Novato and and post their ideas. And we've had 18 responses to date. For this topic, we've posted the 3 design schemes, and we've asked the same questions that we asked in the workshop. What do you like? What don't you like? And what are your concerns? So now what we're in the process of doing is taking all of that information and developing recommendations for land use designations and design criteria. And that will be going through quite a bit of public input and confirmation. We'll be bringing those to the Economic Development Advisory Commission, the Design Review Commission, the Planning Commission, and then finally the City Council. So that's what we're doing for the North Redwood Corridor Boulevard. Our other focus areas, these are the ones I mentioned before. And we had an additional focus area, the College of Marin Indian Valley campus, added to the list. And this was done at the request of the College Board campus. So we added that. And all of these focus areas we posted on Open Novato. And now this was our very first Open Novato topic. It's now closed, but we had 170 participants, 13 responses, and we asked them what focus areas that the city study for potential land use changes. And we identified the areas, gave a little description about them, and then had an interactive tool where they could prioritize what they wanted. And this is their results. The first one was North Redwood Boulevard. The second was Northwest Quadrant Neighborhood. Third was South Redwood Boulevard. 4th, Hamilton. 5, Belmarin Keys Industrial Park. 6, College of Marin Indian Valley Campus. And then 7, there was an option for other, and this one participant identified Grant Avenue. So essentially, the planning staff concurred with this listing. However, we had a lot of discussion about Hamilton and felt that if the land use restrictions, the federal land use restrictions were lifted, then we would actually like to move Hamilton up to number 3. We went to the Planning Commission 2 weeks ago and discussed this with the planning commissioners, and they also agreed that Hamilton actually should be moved up to position 3. So that is our top 3 recommendations are those. And I'm going to go into a little bit about each focus area. The North Redwood area, again, is the area that's north of San Marin Drive up to Birkenstock. There is quite a bit of vacant land there, some of it for sale. Most of it is zoned for office, professional uses, commercial, and light industrial. There is the Buck Center there, of course, and also 2 existing large office buildings, Fireman's Fund, which has a current vacancy rate of about 37%. Also another office building on Wood Hollow Drive, which was occupied by the former Greenpoint Mortgage. That has an occupancy right now of 38%. So there, but however, staff does feel with the SMART train and the new station that's in that area and will be operating presumably by 2016, that this area is going to be ripe for development. We already have proposals for housing, and so a workshop would focus on what land uses the community would like in this area, and it would also address any impacts, particularly traffic impacts and the issues with traffic at San Marin Drive and Redwood Boulevard. The second, our recommendation for number 2 is Northwest Quadrant. And this area, there's a few vacant parcels, but mostly it's been developed with older single-story homes. There's quite a few 2-story apartment buildings as well. The area really could benefit from some revitalization. And because it's so close to downtown, it's really could be very attractive for residents who want to walk to downtown, shopping, restaurants, entertainment venues. It's also probably a great place for people who are interested in downsizing their homes. So this is an area we'd like to look at. We think that with the right development, it could also help to attract businesses downtown and help to sustain those businesses. The third, and this would be, we would include this if the federal land use restrictions were lifted again. And here there's an opportunity to plan for the reuse of the existing historical buildings. There's a theater, there's a hospital, bachelor offices, quarters, there's the old commissary site. And however, we want to emphasize that the planning would really be focusing on general planning land use issues, not on any specific proposal or impacts of any specific proposal, such as, for example, a potential recreation facility. So number 4, and this fell down, so we're not recommending South Redwood Boulevard, but initially we had put this on the list because it is an approach to our downtown. It could potentially be made much more attractive. It has a very wide boulevard, and the buildings are set far from it. But the problem is we really just don't have the bandwidth in terms of time, resources, and this is a very large area, and would take quite an extensive planning effort to do it properly. Number 5 is Belmarin Keys Industrial Park. We had initially put this on the list because there, over the years, city staff had received a lot of requests for kind of expanding the uses and including more service commercial, like dog grooming facilities and medical facilities, recreational facilities. And, but recently, actually a few months ago, staff met with the tenants and some property owners at the business park, and then had a follow-up meeting with the Economic Development Advisory Commission, and determined that most of the stakeholders really would like the uses to stay as they are. So, so the ancillary uses that are supporting the primary uses, we think we could address in a white paper. So I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. And then at number 6 is the College of Marin. College of Marin has a declining enrollment. They also have quite a few outdated and aging buildings that really are in need of renovation or reuse. And unfortunately, you know, we think that this area really has a lot of great potential, but we just, again, don't have the bandwidth for it. So what we are suggesting is perhaps the council would like to encourage the college board to hire a consulting planner who could develop and implement a public planning process, and then the results of that we could fold into the general plan. Before I talk about white papers, I want to mention one other area that was not in our list, which is the downtown. The downtown did go through an extensive planning effort, and the result of which is the downtown specific plan. So we are planning on folding that into the general plan. And there are a couple of issues in the downtown that we think need to be addressed, but we're going to address those in white papers. So the first white paper is on the urban growth boundary, and this was adopted by the voters in 1997. It lasts for 20 years and expires in November of 2017, excuse me. So there is an opportunity for the council. We should have a discussion about the boundary. Should it stay? Should it be adopted? Should it be modified? Should it be allowed to just expire? Should it be put up for a ballot by the voters to vote on it again? So that is one of the white paper topics. The second is Belmarin Keys Park land use. This really is about the ancillary uses. Right now, an operator who wants to open up like a Michael sourdough shop would have to demonstrate that the use was going to just be used is going to be used by the tenants of the industrial park and not for the larger community. That's the only way it's allowed. So the white paper would look at the different policy options for potentially expanding the allowable uses and or just some clarifying language in the zoning code. The next white paper is on downtown parking and ground floor retail, and these are the issues that I mentioned about the downtown. Downtown parking, the city conducts an annual parking study and to determine what the occupancy rate is of the parking stalls. The issue is that we don't want the new development or changes in existing uses to negatively impact the availability of public parking. So the last parking study determined that the occupancy rate of the stalls was at 83% east of Redwood and 66% west of Redwood. The zoning code states that once the occupancy hits 90%, that right now any new development or changes in the existing use is exempted from parking requirements. But once we hit 90%, that development would have to provide the parking on site. The zoning code also states that once the parking capacity hits 85%, then the city has to undergo planning efforts in order to address the parking issue. So that's what we would like to do in this white paper. The other issue is ground floor retail. In the downtown retail core, generally storefronts, street fronting spaces are only allowed to be occupied by retail uses. So offices have to be at the rear of the building or on the second floor. This issue was brought up with the City Council a few months ago, but it couldn't be addressed simply because there wasn't enough staff time to do that. So we would like to bring that up in the white paper. Okay, number 4 is hillside and ridgeline protection. The City Council adopted an ordinance in 2001 to protect hillsides and ridgelines. However, there is still a need to map the ridgelines and to identify the properties that are subject to this ordinance. The Council has also in the past indicated an interest in kind of re-exploring the floor reduction ratio with this, and how that relates to slope density. And as well, the staff would like to look at kind of how this ordinance impacts existing development. So that's something we'd like to do in a white paper. Number 5 is the Climate Action Plan. This was adopted by the Council in 2009, and it contains strategies and programs and policies that will help the city to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions to 2005, 15% below 2005 levels by 2020. The action plan was based on old data on the 2005 inventory. Also, outdated sources were used for projections. So what we'd like to do is go back and revise the plan using the latest 2010 inventory, fresher resources for projections, and then recalculating all of the reductions emissions. There's also an opportunity at this time to adopt a climate action plan as a qualified action plan, and that's one that's essentially is approved by the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. It has to contain strategies that the city is absolutely going to implement, and they have to be very realistic. If we do that, there is a benefit to it in that any future development could have a streamlined CEQA analysis of their greenhouse gas emissions, and as long as, because they would use the CEQA document that is used to adopt the general plan, they would just have to comply with the climate action plan. There are trade-offs, kind of pros and cons to adopting a qualified action plan, so that's something we'd like to bring back and explore in a white paper. Complete streets is required, and as of 2011, any time a city updates their transportation element, they need to address complete streets. This ensures that all roads are safe for all users, for motorists, for bicyclists, pedestrians, as well as transit users. So a white paper on this would identify best practices for complete streets, but also look at the pedestrian bicycle network, identify gaps in that network, and and also transit, look at any potential improvements that could be made for transit connections. So that would be for like the smart train stations and also the downtown bus station. Traffic levels of service. The LOS standards are identified in the 1996 general plan. So a white paper on this would identify what the levels of service currently are, and also if kind of look at the trade-offs of lowering level of service versus what infrastructure improvements would be needed to maintain the LOS with additional development. And then finally, a white paper on healthy living. The Community Services Department, as well as the Recreation, Cultural, and Community Services Advisory Commission, have expressed an interest in adopting some additional policies and programs in the general plan that would kind of expand the human services part of the general plan, and include more policies and programs on fitness, on healthy eating, on access to fresh and healthy food throughout the community. So any significant policy options that they'd like to include, we would like to bring forward in a white paper before including it in the general plan. So that is our recommended focus areas and white paper topics. So to just kind of give you a brief look at the schedule, and there was a much more comprehensive schedule in your packet. The existing conditions report, we're expecting to have that completed by December 2013, which is coming upon us. The evaluation of its existing policies and programs would be completed by March of next year. Our white paper policy topics, we're looking at presenting those to probably, every month or 2 months and get through all 8 topics by October of next year. The focus areas, and this is assuming that we're doing 3 additional focus areas, we would be able to complete that process by January, and that's essentially doing a focus area every quarter, although some may require more time to develop them than others. And then to take all of that information and put it into our draft general plan, which we would be ready to start with the public review process by March of 2015. Kind of on a separate track, we have the housing element, of course, and as soon as we adopt the current housing, the 2014 to or 2007 to 14 housing element, we're going to get started on the next one. The next one, I have got May 2015 down there, but that is actually the drop dead date. The housing element is due at HCD at January 31st of 2015. It must be adopted 120 days later. And otherwise, there's some penalties that we would not want to have to deal with. So our plan actually is to have this into HCD well in advance of that deadline. The next thing, of course, is to do the environmental impact review process. That's going to take at least a year. We're hoping to wrap that up by spring of 2016, and then to be able to adopt the plan by winter of 2016. So that is everything. I don't know if Bob has anything additionally that he might like to do. You want to say anything else?
No, I think, that, again, what we're asking the council tonight is if you have any feedback or any differing opinions about the focus areas that we will be working on and the white paper topics. That's primarily what we're looking for this evening.